Good. We are going to do a quick reading per request. Hold on, I'm going to fix this. How's that? Good? All right, we are reading from page 180 in Listening with the Third Ear. It is a really beautiful day. Yes, written by Theodore Reich, R-E-I-K, 1948. Yeah, really great book. Other ones written by this author called The Ritual, with a preface by Sigmund Freud, The Unknown Murderer, Surprise and the Psychoanalyst, From 30 Years with Freud, Masochism in Modern Man, A psychologist looks at love, Psychology of Sex Relations, and Listening with the Third Ear, which is this one. Amazing. That's great. You have read all those? Oh, because you heard me suggest them back years ago? Oh, well, I'm glad I inspired you to do that. I mean, Lord knows so many people and things inspired me to approach those things, to even open the book or be talking about such topics. It amazes me really too. The grand scale of things, you know. All right, so we're doing a random page turn here. We got page 180. In the Who Am I chapter, he had frequently been taken to a physician, and the fact that his scrotum was underdeveloped must have made him doubt that he was a real man. As he expressed himself later on, his present worries about being the father of an illegitimate child were pushed into the foreground in order to hide from himself and others his doubts about his potency. What interests us here are two things: the physical situation in the patient and what went on in the psychoanalyst, who guessed what was taking place behind the stage of conscious feeling and thinking. It became clear that the young man played hide and seek, so to speak, not only with me, but also with himself. The little scene that he enacted in the analytic session was not the only presentation of his private theater. Before his visit to me, he had confided in a casual acquaintance that he had become the father of an illegitimate child, a bit of conduct that contrasted conspicuously with his usual reticence. After the analytic session, he went to a young couple, friends of his, to whom he gave a vivid description of his situation and whom he asked for advice and help. He asked them to find out about an apparitionist for Margot, who expected a child by him. The response of the analyst to the story was certainly not in the nature of conscious mistrust in its verity. I was, of course, astonished by the resemblance between the present situation and the one about which he had told me before, but there was no suspicion of an act played before my eyes. There was, however, a reluctance, as if I had felt something false or theatrical in his sentences. Then the word confessions, the memory of the book with its cover, and the name of its author came to conscious mind. Let me emphasize here that the thought about the unconscious sexual inferiority feelings of the patient emerged much later, only after I understood what my own associations had meant, what they wanted to say. My emotional response reacted here, as in most cases, much more precisely than my conscious thought process, and it was cleverer than my intelligence. It is necessary to repeat here the recommendation to pay attention to one's own inner voices, which are now so readily drowned out by reason and knowledge. Such repetition becomes necessary when one realizes that it is much easier to make a new idea enter the head of the Statue of Liberty than the minds of many psychoanalysts. I am of the opinion that the impression of the phony nature of my patient's worries would not have emerged if it had not been prepared by previous impressions which were received and perceived during the preceding weeks of analysis and which had to a great extent become unconscious. As one representative instance of such impressions, I refer to the sentence previously quoted, in which he asserted that carrying the gold cigarette case contradicts my trend to simplicity. The way he told me about Margot's expected child, yes, even in his introduction, I need to talk to you as man to man, sounded equally stilted. I realize only now that there was another link that tied my patient to Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Some of the opinions my patient expressed, especially those about the state of society, his emphasis on simplicity, his sentimentality, as well as a certain juvenile attitude toward the world, had reminded me unconsciously of Rousseau, just as his theatrical self-accusation had. At this point, I yield to the next association. It is connected with the word theatrical, only superficially. The next thought that occurs to me is the dream of another patient, which concerns the theater. It is certainly not this surface association alone that determines the succession of this instance to the previous one. There are perhaps other connecting links to be seen later on, but here is the dream. I am walking on the street as I meet Joe and Lillian. They tell me that Lillian got that part in the play and will be understudy in another play. My first reaction is anger. Why didn't Alice get the part? I cordially congratulate Lillian, but I feel like a hypocrite. I am curious about how Alice will take the news and that her sister got the part. Alice comes into the room and I tell her the news. To my great astonishment, she is greatly pleased. I am not concerned here with the details of the interpretation of this dream, but with the way I arrived at an essential part of the dream interpretation, and at its impression which became important for the character image of this patient. It will be sufficient to give a little information about the dreamer and his relationships to the persons here mentioned. Lillian and Alice are sisters, both actresses. Lily is married to Joe, and Alice, who is single, lives with the young couple. The dreamer is Alice's lover. He is very interested in her theatrical career, praises her talent, and helps her whenever he can to get parts. There are some data that must be mentioned as day remnants. Alice tried to get a certain part in a new comedy and had an audition for it the day before the dream. The patient had met the strange manager who told him Alice gave a good reading, but she is perhaps not the right person for the part. The dream starts. It seems from this situation, not Alice, but her sister got the part. The dreamer is angry because Alice did not get the part. He is curious about how she will take the news, and relieved when he finds that she is pleased. The hidden wish fulfillment in this dream cannot be guessed from the manifest content, but from insight into the secret emotions of the dreamer. Although he is consciously very eager to see Alice succeed as an actress, and although he would be sincerely grieved if she really did not get the part, such a frustration would satisfy another part of his personality. He is very jealous, and he foresees that his charming sweetheart would be the subject of much admiration and wooing from many men were she to get the part. Yes, even he foresees that some stage manager or actor might make a pass at her, a possibility which he does not like a bit. The dream starts, then, with the feared and unconsciously hoped for situation that the decision would be negative for Alice. Not she, but her sister would get the role. The last part of the dream brings the removal of another worry, namely that Alice would be depressed by her failure. She even appears highly pleased because her sister succeeded. One is entitled to call such a dream hypocritical because the dreamer expresses emotions that he does not feel, but only pretends to feel. The factor of hypocrisy even appears openly in the manifest dream content. I cordially congratulate Lillian, but I feel like a hypocrite. However, it is displaced to another element of the dream. The distortion, never missing in the dreams of adult persons, concerns the nature of the feelings that are displayed. In reality, the dreamer would be very pleased if Lillian, and not Alice, got the part because his sweetheart would then not be exposed to the passes of other men. Although he does not admit it to himself, he does not like to see Alice so ambitious and so keen about her profession as an actress. He would prefer that she give up this dangerous career, although he pretends even to himself to be very enthusiastic about her successes and sad when she is disappointed. The decisive impression I had as I listened to the report of the dream and of the events that contributed to its production could be put as follows. Someone said he could still really be sad that she's sad, but not sad about the actual, what she's sad about, but sad that she's sad. I get what you mean by that. Right, it's very conflicting, yes. He would be very glad if Alice did not get the part, clearly in contrast to the manifest content of the dream in which he is angry that not Alice but Lillian got the part of the play. This impression was strong and remained while the patient was saying that he would be very disappointed if the strange manager did not choose Alice for the part. How did I get this impression? I cannot account for it now. There was nothing in his voice or gestures to suggest such a suspicion, nor was there anything in the preceding hours that pointed in this direction. I can assert that until then, at least insofar as my conscious thinking went, I had assumed that he wished Alice would become a great actress, in conformity with her own wishes, of course. And in the manifest content of the dream, and in the associations he made, there was nothing that could be interpreted otherwise. Where did this new impression come from? I do not know, but I guess it was the echo of a short sentence which introduced the report of the dream. He had said, "I had a dream last night." That was funny. And we'll pause there. Oh, this is getting dark. I think the battery is getting low. Alright, we'll do more reading later. Bow, bow, chicka, chicka, bow, bow.